good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The following show is just horrifying. Beware.
Sheriff, you're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking spiked sangria, we're talking the love of dance, and we're talking extreme cinema, but not new French extremity. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking all the things.
Yeah, I was like, should I make a note of all the content warnings? And then it was like, oh, this is just another one of the all the things
I know. Joe, I am exhausted.
You know what, listeners? We hope you've been enjoying this 3-act anxiety ride. We promise things will get a little bit better moving forward. But, oh boy, we are ending with a bang.
So everyone, we are watching Gaspar Noé's, we're discussing Gaspar Noé's Climax today, and as someone who has never seen another Gaspar Noé film and read that this was his most accessible film,
Yes.
Color me surprised.
Yeah, this one's like a walk in the park compared to some of the other ones, but it doesn't mean that it's easier than most other films.
Exactly. Interesting. Well, and like Irreversible is always one of those films where I'm like, I fucking need to see this because everyone always brings it up and I know what it is. And it's just like, I have never been in the mood to watch Irreversible.
My God, you and your moods. Yeah.
I know. We have to watch it for the podcast.
Yeah, basically.
But nevertheless, there's a lot to discuss in this movie today. Some plot, some, well, this is really one of those experience movies, right, Joe?
Indeed, yeah. I do have a plot recap. We're going to try to go through it, but folks, I'm not going to lie. This is another one of those, like, you should see it because that's really a good portion of the experience.
Yes, and I'm eager to see how we both react to this film, but I think we need another perspective, so let's bring in our guest that's waiting in the wings, okay? All right, everyone. So you have read his work at such sites as The Spool, The Film Stage, Bright Wall Dark Room, and RogerEbert.com. Please welcome Matt Cipolla.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm excited. I was telling Joe right before we started recording, it's been snowing all day, so I'm kind of in the good mindset to do this.
Just lock yourself in the basement, put on some dance music, drink the... Oh, wait, no, don't touch the sangria. Just leave that alone.
Do y'all think Omar got out the easiest out of these people?
Ooh.
Maybe.
Well, here's the thing. I want to put a pin in that because I will confess, the first time I saw this film, I only thought 1 or 2 of these people died. And then I realized that people think that most of these people die. So I want to hear your thoughts, but we'll wait until we get there.
Okay. That's fair. I will say, it was really funny taking notes during this movie. And Matt, you mentioned before we started recording that you took a lot of notes. This is my second time seeing this movie. I did see it at a film festival. They did serve sangria before the movie.
Nice.
But I paused the movie for every single one of those fucking interviews that opens the film to really learn these characters. And honestly, it kind of made the viewing experience more fun. Like I took in so much more on this viewing than I did on my first viewing.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely helps.
And considering that this is a lot of improv, right? It's surprising how much these untrained, non-professional actors ended up building things from their interview into the film and vice versa. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think the interviews were done after the fact.
You are correct. And yes, I have lots of thoughts about that, especially, and we'll go through that in the production, but like, it's one of those things too, where like improv is scary. And the fact that Noé had, as you said, Joe, a lot of non-actors doing this improv work and pulling it off pretty well, that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. So, Matt, you picked this film when we presented you with a list of options, and I'm very curious to hear why this one.
Oh my god, I don't know. It's funny because, well, full disclosure, I remember, like, when I was first emailing you back in like November or December about possibly being on the show, you're like, do you have anything in particular? And honestly, well, part of it was because I was at work and I was doing other stuff, but I was like, well, I have like this and this and this and maybe this, but like I'm open to anything. I don't know. And it was one of the first things that came to mind. Like it was the closest thing to a concrete suggestion or thing I wanted to be involved with, just because like I'm the type of person where a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times I want a movie that makes me like want to vomit. Like nothing that's like gross out or like necessarily gratuitous, although you could call this gratuitous depending on your mileage. It's more of a thing of like sometimes I want a movie to like pull me by my hair and then like shove a lump of coal in my mouth and then like gag me like Jawbreaker style. And it was the thing of like I remember this came out a year and a half after Mother, and Mother was a movie I saw in theaters 4 times. And
wow.
I saw this movie in theaters 3 times in 6 days.
Whoa.
Oh no, Matt.
It's because, so at the time, I'm not working there anymore, but at the time I was working at a movie theater that was playing it. And it was partially, it was like, yeah, I can get them for free, but also I want to see this. Because the first time, I remember I saw it the Thursday night opening, and like the 7 p.m. early showing or whatever, and I was fucked up off of it. And I stumbled out of that theater, and I chugged a bunch of water, and then I just wanted to do it again, to see, like, Trace, like you were talking about, like, being more attuned to who the specific characters are, because we can get more into this, but like I love how even if you don't understand specifically who all the characters are in relation, you always get a good gist of who they are, and they all have a unique look and a unique style.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like in an ensemble of 24 people, even if you don't know a majority of their names, that's sort of a matter of semantics. It's like, oh, it's like the woman with the big hair and like the dude in the tracksuit and like the like guy in the corset, you know, like it's all of that sort of stuff. And then it was just like looking back after I had seen it for different reasons. I started in my personal time reading more philosophy, and not to become like armchair philosophers.
No, go
but
ahead.
It's like, it was definitely a thing where in retrospect, I kind of put 2 and 2 together, because it's in the interviews where you have all of the, which I think is funny. Some people thought it was annoying, but like all of the VHS tapes and the books that are blatantly like, here are my inspirations.
Oh my god, they're Easter eggs. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But some people are like, that's not a personality trait. Like, have your own identity.
Fuck off.
And I'm like, I don't agree with that. And so some of them are like Nietzsche or Oscar Wilde. And then one of them is a book by Emile Cioran called The Trouble with Being Born, which is this, like a 200-page book entirely composed of just aphorisms. So the longest thing you'll get is maybe like 2 paragraphs. But by and large, in that book, it's like 7 to 10 sentences or 7 to 10 lines. And then a space break, and then another stray thought. And a lot of it is structured and has a very similar outlook to this film. But I almost feel like this movie is it's as much as like an unintentional or unofficial adaptation of that style of writing and that style of philosophy, as well as it is a compliment to it. Because like that style of writing is very much in terms of, it's an internal monologue. It's very poetically driven. Whereas here it's very cut and dry, and it's prose, especially when we're cutting back and forth between all the characters and stuff like that in the first half, and they're just shit talking each other. But then I find it fascinating when directors work with non-actors. Noe is one of those few directors working today where I'm always excited to see what he'll do, even if I have no idea what I'll think of it. But this is my favorite of his movies. I've seen all of his features. I either really like or love all of them, except for Love. I fucking hate Love. So I was happy to see this and then get back on the train of whatever the hell he was doing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I have no experience with Noe. I know a lot about his films. I've just never subjected myself to one of his films. I really like this movie. But even after the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, I loved that, but I don't need to see that again. And watching this last night, alone on my couch, I'm not anxiety prone. I'm not really prone to anxiety. Despite the fact that I probably said Mother was very anxiety inducing 2 weeks ago, but that's just how it is. Watching the last half of this movie, I feel like there is a vice grip around my chest, and it won't let go. Like, I was so uncomfortable, which I get is the point. But like watching this movie that I'm like, I love it, I respect it, I think it's great, I never need to see this movie again.
Yeah, even when we programmed this, Trace was like, oh god, that means I'm going to have to watch it again. I told myself I wasn't going to watch this again. See, I don't have that issue. I don't mind this film. I don't think I find it as stressful as other people. Like, even, I think, Trace, the description of like a vice grip is actually pretty apropos.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I enjoy that. I don't find it so limiting that I can't enjoy the film. Like, I think I'm actually more on Matt's side, where there's something so compelling about the way that this film grips you emotionally and even physically. Like, that's why we keep calling these films experiences, because they make us feel things so strongly. And I'm talking from a place of privilege where I haven't had experiences like bad drug trips. Like, I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So this didn't give me any kind of flashbacks or hit me with that kind of anxiety. But I could imagine for people with experiences with drugs, this might be very, I don't like triggering, but it could be very upsetting.
Wait, okay, so Matt, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but do you have any experience with hallucinogens?
No, and I figured that was going to come up, but no. I mean, because this is the only thing is I drink and I smoke weed, and that's it. Like, I've never done anything else aside from prescription medications.
We're all so basic.
Okay, hold on.
My body's a temple, guys.
Hold my beer. No. I mean, I have dabbled in certain illicit substances. I'm not experienced in hallucinogens. I've never done LSD. I have tripped on shrooms once in my life, and this was very early pandemic, and I just sat on my balcony and I watched a tree melt for a good, 30 minutes.
Whoa.
But that's the thing, is like with hallucinogens, like I don't trust my brain not to give me a bad trip. And we can talk about whatever dose these people take, because they are overdosing on LSD. That's why they go through like the psychostimulant psychosis. But I wasn't having a flashback watching this. It's just like, I mean, again, it's the way Noé films this movie, right? Like, once the camera starts doing spins, I was like, oh god, I'm out. And it's not that I wasn't enjoying it. I mean, again, I am appreciating this work. It's just, I have to subject myself to it.
I love the idea. I mean, really, this is probably a cousin to exploitation cinema. Like, I think it's not quite hitting that barometer hard enough for it to classify, even though obviously, like, one of the VHS tapes is Salo or 120 Days of Sodom, which is like, if you want to subject yourself to it, there's that. There's a Serbian film. Go follow Spinsters of Horror, because they love to talk about all those kinds of films. But I think for me, I don't know. And maybe that's why people describe it as Noé's most accessible film, because this feels uncomfortable, but it is something that you can endure and get through. Whereas like Irreversible is just like, hey, what's your tolerance for rape and also revenge? Because that's what the film is in 2 parts. Like, it's just really fucking hard.
It's incredibly punishing.
Would y'all call his films art house, like where it's like not just the subject matter, but just the way in which the narrative unfolds is difficult for mainstream audiences?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's French.
Yeah.
Well, he's French, but also, I mean, he's doing. It depends on how you would define art house, but I would, in no stretch of the imagination, define any of his outputs as mainstream.
Right.
And especially, I feel like a lot of it is like you can handle it as tactfully and as straightforward as you want to, but all the subject matter and the discussions that he has with all of his films, I feel like immediately puts it outside of whatever you would say is not art house.
Yeah. And particularly, like, if you read interviews that he has given about this film, when he learned that this was considered his most accessible film, or that it was getting the best reviews of his career, he was deeply disappointed, and he joked, oh, I guess I better go back to the drawing board because I've done something wrong.
Because this was the first movie, like, there were a bunch of people at Cannes who were like, oh my god, it's great, it's super fun, but it's also super fucked up, and if you want to go on a ride, here you go. And like for like A24 of all things to pick this up, like this is his first movie with an MPA rating in the US. It got the widest release, which still isn't super wide, but it was something. Like this is the closest he'll get. And I haven't seen Lux Eterna, which is like 51 minutes or something, and that was Cannes 2019, and that's like never gonna come out. I don't know what happened with that. And then Vortex, which was at the previous Can, I believe, which is like a 2-hour 20. It sounds like his riff on Amor, honestly.
Okay, yeah, but it's Dario Argento. Like,
it is, yeah.
I was looking at that and I was like, what the fuck? That is
Oh,
awesome.
yeah, and also I saw that Utopia picked up Vortex, so like it's gonna get released. Like it's gonna be, at least in major markets.
Well, I guess maybe I'm just talking out my ass because I haven't seen his other films, but I just feel like this is just a simple narrative, which is okay, hey, bunch of dancers, they rehearse, they accidentally get dosed with LSD, that's the movie. Like there's nothing extra there beyond, well, I'm sorry, there is, obviously, and we'll talk about it, but just on a basic narrative level, like that's the plot of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but a lot of his films sort of follow a fairly simple narrative, and it's like, if you don't scratch beneath the surface, then you're going to come away thinking, oh, okay, well, that was relatively straightforward. And it's only when you start to realize, like, oh, how did he construct this, and what is he actually saying? His films are incredibly political, and we're, I think, going to talk a little bit about what it means for France, and maybe how some American critics have misinterpreted what the film is trying to do. But yeah, he always has a message.
Well, let's go into this then, right? Because I find the production of this film to be absolutely fascinating, and that it was done so quickly is even more mind-boggling to me.
Well, I think, like, Trace, what you were talking about also in terms of it being simple, I would say, I mean, all of his movies are really simple. They have just a baseline, like, they just have a nugget of an idea, but I think a lot of it has to do with, well, he doesn't shy away from anything for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then, by and large, especially for something like Irreversible or Enter the Void, and then even for segments of this movie, a lot of it has to do with the pacing that a lot of audiences wouldn't come to expect or would find really, really taxing and repetitive.
Yeah.
Like when you get to the end of it, like it's literally just red strobe lights upside down with people thriving and screaming for 7 full minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is plenty of there's plenty of that in this movie. Honestly, I will say, well, no, I'll wait till we get to the plot. Okay, so as one of the title cards at the beginning of the movie implies, Climax is loosely based on the true story of a French dance troupe in the 1990s who had their alcoholic beverages spiked with LSD at an after party. However, the big difference is, outside of the trips, no further incidents of violence or whatever took place, unlike, say, the events that happen in this film. The idea of making a film based around dance came to Noé in late December of 2017 when he was invited to a Vogue ballroom by Lea Vlamos, and this is the actress who plays Eva in the movie, the one who winds up in the shower by the film's end.
Right.
And he witnessed crumping, which I had to look this up. It's a style of street dance. I know. I was like, what is that? Crumping is a style of street dance popularized in the United States, described as Afro-diasporic dance and characterized by free, expressive, exaggerated, and highly energetic movement. And if you haven't seen this film and you don't know what I'm saying, you'll get it as soon as you start watching this movie.
Yeah, I mean, do your queer history. This is very like Paris is Burning, voguing, and other kinds of contemporary art mixed with really exaggerated body movements.
Mm-hmm. So he was amazed by these young kids dancing like they were possessed by evil forces, his words. Although he originally felt inspired to make a documentary about dance, he came up with, he's like, oh, we're going to do a movie, and sought inspiration from films of the 70s like The Towering Inferno, The Poseidon Adventure, and Shivers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of those things is not like the other.
I would say Shivers is probably the most of them.
Yeah.
I guess it's just because it's a disaster movie. I guess I never really thought about it through that lens, but I find that interesting that Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure comes out. But yeah, Shivers seems the most apt comparison.
Yep. Well, I think it's also about how, as a society, we like to think that we look out for each other and we are in it together, and ultimately what we end up doing is disbanding and being in it for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads to what he wanted to do with this film. Noé has said that the film is all about people creating something together and failing in the second half. It's like the biblical story of the Tower of Babel. Mankind can create big things, and then within the influence of alcohol or an accident, everything falls. Yeah, it's a big collective screw-up. So a month later, he has the idea, and a month later, he's like, cool, we're going to start production right away. And this was faster than typical productions that he's done in the past. So he brings on his producers, and under the condition that Noé would keep the production very short and film it for cheap. So they started casting and preparing the movie at the beginning of that January, with the cast mostly made of dancers with no acting experience, as we've already stated. Noé found the cast himself mostly in ballrooms, crumping battles, or just internet searches. So as Vogue and Crumping are largely individual dances, most of the cast had no experience dancing as a group or in synchronization. And, I mean, obviously that didn't seem to be a problem for them here. The only cast members with acting experience were Sofia Boutella, who plays the choreographer Selva, and, I'm going to butcher this, but we'll see, Suela Yacoub, who plays Lou, and she's the pregnant character in the film. Right. Because Noé realized that their characters would have been too hard for someone who isn't really an actor, since they were more complicated psychologically. Well, I would say they're given more screen time to convey those psychological issues than any of the other characters in the film.
Yeah, and they really go through it, especially the latter.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at her plight. That's actually a really upsetting scene in the film. So a month later in February, they get an abandoned school in the suburb of Paris, and they film for 15 days. Noé conceived of a basic story, gave the cast ideas as to where the story and characters would go, but he did not write any lines. He let the cast improvise the dialogue and most of the situations in front of the camera. There were no rehearsals, only the premise, the character's basic personality traits, and that early dance scene that lasts for about 7 minutes had been planned beforehand. So the cast would actually go to him and ask him for a script, and he said, nope, just come to the set, do whatever you want. I will never push you to do anything against your will, and if you have any ideas of what you want to do, please tell me. And I think this is, I'm going to go more into this in a bit, but I love this like collaborative idea. Like, this honestly feels like something I would have done in my high school theater class. If we were allowed to, utilize this kind of subject matter.
Yeah, it just sounds terrifying to me. Like, I can't imagine not being an actor, trying to act, and then also being told, oh, you also need to now come up with a character and situations and react naturally.
Well, and that was even a thing for Sofia Boutella. Like, there's one special feature on the Blu-ray of this thing, because it was one of the movies where A24 is like, it's not really the main A24 staples, so let's just sort of like throw it on Amazon. But there's one featurette, and it's like a quick kind of interview with Sofia Boutella, and she was like, cool, what do you want to do? And Gaspar is like, oh, well, I just want to like explore dancers who are drugged. And she's like, okay, cool. And what else? And he's like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. And then she's like, okay, cool, what kind of choreographer do you have? And he's like, I don't really think we need one. And she's like, that's not how that works. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it'll be fine. And she's like, no, seriously. And then she met a woman named Nina McNeely and then recommended her to Gaspar Noé for it, and she is the one who choreographed the entire movie.
Interesting.
So he did give several ideas to the cast, but let them be free to follow them or not. So when entering production, he knew the start and the end of the film, but he didn't know what was going to happen in between. So they did shoot the film in chronological order, which keeps the door open for any kind of rewriting, because obviously something that happens first, and they can, play that in the film later as they're filming. But he said the mood was very like joyful and friendly. People obviously were not actually getting wasted, but he would go around to the cast and go, hey, what would you enjoy doing in the movie? How would you want to shock the audience? He would go to them and say, hey, who in this room do you want to kiss? Who do you want to smash? Which I think in this case means fucking. Mm-hmm. Or who do you want to insult? And then he would go and ask everyone the same question. And then basically, whenever someone matched up with their response, that's how he would like move forward with the narrative of the film.
I kind of love that.
Oh, I do too. I think it's a fantastic way to collaborate with your cast.
Yeah.
There was no clear ending in mind, as I said, but according to Noé, the only narrative directive was that the most fragile ones would die at the end, only the strong survive. And Joe, as you said, these interview tapes were not originally planned, but Noé's line producer suggested that the cast should have talked more in the film and came up with the idea of interviewing them to introduce the audience to those characters. And those scenes were also completely improvised.
Yeah, which is fascinating to me because I think this film actually doesn't work very well if you don't have those interviews. So for those to have not been considered part of the film originally, and just like, oh wow, okay, this movie really just would have been about a bunch of no-name dancers having a conniption fit.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing with production that I have is that because obviously this is a film that primarily features people under the influence of drugs. He didn't want to use the normal approach that a lot of I'll call them drug films, I guess. Drug films do, where the filmmaking style really tries to simulate the experience of being under the influence of the drug, although you can maybe quibble with that aspect in like the final 10-15 minutes of the film. But he didn't want to use any visual or sound effects to reproduce the feeling you're having when you're on acid. He wanted to shoot it almost documentary style with long cuts, and let the cast feel free to have their characters react to the LSD in whichever way they preferred. Although he did show them a lot of videos of people high on LSD, mushrooms, crack, whatever, and then they based their characters high on those things.
I also read somewhere that apparently none of the dancers or none of the cast had any experiences with hallucinogens or psychedelic drugs at all. So Noah and his producers were like genuinely surprised. And like, that's when they were like, okay, we'll show all these videos of people just like tweaking out. And then you can kind of, hopefully that'll help you. Apparently it was also, Sofia Boutella mentioned this too in an interview. They were shown videos of people tweaking out on a synthetic drug called Flakka, which she used a lot to actually base her character movements off of, especially her big Possession homage.
Wait, I haven't seen Possession. What's the Possession homage?
It's basically where she goes up and down the hall and has like that huge freak out. Like that looks exactly like a scene from Possession.
Yeah, it's Isabelle Nanjiani in like the subway in Possession.
Got it. Well, okay, so it's so funny because that's the scene where like a part of the scene is when she sticks her hands down her pantyhose, but then like her hands are trapped under there. Mm-hmm. I have a friend, I saw this with a friend at the festival, and he was like, I have had that moment where you're like fucking tripping acid and you stick your hand like in your pocket and then you think it's like part of your pants and that your hands are stuck to the skin on your body. It is horrifying.
Yeah, none of that sounds good. No, thank you.
Don't do drugs, kids. So yeah, the film premieres on May 13th, 2018 at the Cannes Film Festival, screening in the Director's Fortnight section where it did win the Art Cinema Award. It is released in the United States, wide-ish. It's a very, very limited release on March 1st, 2019 by A24. It opens in the number 42 spot in 5 theaters with about $120,000 gross. It never screened in more than 217 screens. That was its widest release. So it winds up with a domestic gross of about $800,000 and an international gross of $1.2 million for a worldwide gross of $2 million against a production budget of roughly $2.9 million.
But I did want to ask, since we're talking about underrated or underseen.
Oh, fuck.
Do you two think that this is either underseen or underrated?
I'm going to say underseen.
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I would say underseen, because for Noe and also just for the content at hand, I was kind of surprised that people liked it as much as they did.
Yeah, it's true. I think the people who have seen it actually quite like it, but just not that many people have.
Yeah. Well, I'm also interested to see how many of our listeners sought this out before listening to this episode, or if they were like, no, I'm going to skip that and just listen to them talk about it.
Well, we have put them through the ringer the last couple of weeks.
Oh boy, y'all. So yeah, as Matt said, this did have a warmer reception I guess a less divisive reception than most of Noé's previous films. We are looking at a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 6.9 out of 10 and a Letterboxd score of 7.4 out of 10. So your Letterboxd heads really like this movie. That's it. That is the production and reception of Climax.
There we go. All right. Well, I have a feeling that we're going to have a lot to say about every little detail, so I'm going to dive right in.
Okay.
So we begin with overhead bird's eye shots of a screaming, bloody woman who is crawling through the snow. And I will say that I typically dislike movies that begin in media res, and I don't mind this because I don't know, it doesn't feel like as much of a spoiler or a like, oh, and then we jump back 12 hours and how do we get here? It's like, well, I'm pretty sure I know how it's going to go.
I find that interesting, if only because this is Lou out here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't mind it either, Joe, but I'm surprised that you don't, if only because that is the end for this character. But I guess you don't know who the character is at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, it's overhead. You can't really tell. It's just someone screaming. And also, she starts writhing around in the snow.
Yeah.
It's quick, but I think it works because the structure is also working in tandem with what it's going for thematically.
Right.
This is where you get one of the first of many tongue-in-cheek title cards explaining the anti-natalist streak of this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to expand upon that?
Yeah, this is part of the reason that I was surprised that so many people like this movie, or is like, I was surprised that not more people dislike it, I guess. I mean, I know some people who fucking despise this movie. They think it's trash and they think it's racist.
Yep.
But this is, I mean, it opens with this. It does the thing where the credits roll first.
Yeah.
And it opens with one card. It says, "To our makers who are no longer with us." And to that, I was like, is this a tribute? Is this talking about parents? But then it flashes quickly to like a blurry kind of title card that says, "Existence is a fleeting illusion." And then we get into the interviews, and then I can get more into the other title card that we get later on throughout the film.
Yeah.
But when I say anti-natalist, essentially the philosophy of this movie, which characters talk about throughout, I mean, like pregnancy and childbirth and abortion are all major topics at hand here. And the anti-natalism is essentially the idea that human procreation is inherently immoral, largely because it's a non-consensual act. You're bringing someone into the world without them ever asking to do so, and then subjecting them to all the evils of the world at hand, which kind of is what happens to children in this movie.
Yeah, this movie doesn't care for that very much at all, does it?
It does not empathize with parents either.
We can get to that when we get to some of the more traumatic scenes later on, but I wouldn't say it doesn't empathize because it focuses so much on it. I feel like implicitly you have to.
Okay.
Well, I think in part, Noe is always interested in raising topics and then not giving you an easy out and forcing you to confront, like, hey, how do you feel about this? I'm putting it right in front of your face and I'm asking for a reaction, and then it's up to you to decide how you feel.
Yeah, and this is what I like about it too. I feel like it also fits in terms of what you were talking about, the production, how collaborative it was. This is essentially the film itself collaborating with the audience to make whatever the hell you want out of whatever you already have.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because like I know people who have watched this movie and said, "Oh, I really love the dance sequence." Like, I'm going to give a shout out to former guest Laura from our Hocus Pocus episode. She told me that she used to just put on the dance, like the 7-minute dance sequence, whenever she needed to like feel happy or something.
Oh my god, I've done the same thing dozens of times. So the theater I was working at the time, so I was trying to look up these clips. Like 5 days ago, I think A24 removed them from YouTube, which
probably
boo
A24.
They were up for like 3 years, so why not? But it was when I would take the bus from my apartment to work, it was almost perfect timing for me to watch the opening dance sequence and then the scene halfway through where the camera is on the ceiling and it's a bunch of match cuts of all the dancers and it gets increasingly chaotic. I almost had every time like the exact amount of time in my commute to watch both of those scenes, and it became almost like a daily routine for me.
Right.
It's so funny because so early pandemic, we had like my husband and I had like a little pandemic pod with some of our friends, and we would go to our friend's house and watch RuPaul's Drag Race every Friday night. But then that's like, like an hour and a half, and so we would go after that, and we would just trade off doing YouTube videos, and it could be anything, movie clips, music videos, whatever you want. And I would always pick this dance number when it was available on YouTube.
Right.
But it always made me mad because I know Joe doesn't. But Matt, do you karaoke ever?
I've done karaoke once.
Okay,
it's just like I've never in the circumstance to do it, and I had a good time, but I also wasn't sober.
Yeah, that's normal. Well, so basically, a good rule of thumb with karaoke is you don't pick a song that's longer than 4 minutes. Those rules also applied to our music video thing. So I would always, playing this dance would always count as 2 picks for me. I would have to skip around the next time.
Well, it is lengthy. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's lengthy, but it's worth it.
And that's just it, right? But in a way, by watching them out of context, like you're removing part of what Noe, I think, is hoping to do with the film, right? Like the dance is joyous, but the whole point is that you watch the dance and then you have to watch what comes afterwards. And I like the idea of like there's a negotiation with the audience where, we're going to go on YouTube. We're going to watch this out of context because this part brings me joy. Rest of the film, not so much.
Well, that's the easiest. Like, if you really want to fuck with someone's head, I have done this to someone. I've shown them this scene when I'm very high and been like, oh yeah, isn't this awesome? Oh my God, this is great. What movie is it from? Yeah, it's really good. It's just, but the whole plot is, they accidentally get dosed with acid and mayhem ensues. There you go. And oh my God, I want to watch that. And I was like, do you? I don't know.
Yes, you do. And it's going to be super fun.
Right. Okay, so yeah, we get a white noise sound on an old-fashioned TV, and then we get a series of talking head interviews. And as we've said, this is framed by both books as well as VHS films, and these are all the inspirations for the film. Noe is very much on the record as saying that one of his things that he's very interested in, or that drove this particular movie, is funny cruelty. So a lot of the books and films have those elements to it, right? Where it's like you're laughing, but you probably shouldn't because it's about death and horrible things happening to good people and so on. So in case you were wondering, Matt, you already mentioned that there's some Nietzsche in here, but there's also Kafka's Metamorphosis. There's books on Louis Buñuel, who is famous for his surrealism. There's a very famous French novel called Baise-moi, which was made into a very controversial film. And the title, in case you don't speak French, is Rape Me. There's also the book Taxi Driver. So if you wanted a little bit of nihilism, a little bit of political, cultural critique. There's a book called How to Succeed at Suicide, The Teachings of Don Juan, all the good stuff.
It's funny, too, because some of the VHS tapes, it's like, oh, I can totally see that. And then some of them I'm like, oh, I can see that. But then you were talking about, was it comic cruelty? Is that what cruelty is? That what you said? Mm-hmm. And then some of them I'm like, okay, well, Harakiri is on VHS to the right of this TV. And that's one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen in my life. It's one of my favorite movies ever. But I watched it before work once, and it was a choice. And then there's some other ones where I was like, I would say like the VHS for Dawn of the Dead is also there, which is a stretch. Like I would not compare these two at all, but that is, I can see that too, which is also, it's under the French title of just zombie. Yeah.
Well, maybe Harakiri being included here is more of a testament to Noé's thoughts on the film than the film itself.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'll link to it in the show notes, but I found an interview that he did with Karen Hahn for Polygon, and he actually breaks down most of the books of the films as to why he picked them. And yeah, some of them are very personal, like they're important to his creative output as a director and a writer. And then other ones, like Dawn of the Dead, is the idea that people have locked themselves into a fixed confine, and then they start to turn on one another.
Yeah, and I also saw in an interview, he said regarding Dawn of the Dead, he was also like, oh, and it was also the first VHS I ever owned.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I really vividly remember watching this film. This was part of the Midnight Madness screening at TIFF, so I got to review it for Bloody, and I remember trying to desperately write down titles so that I could reference them in my review, and it was like, I think I managed to spot maybe 5 or 6 in total. It was like, okay, that'll have to do. I'll have to try to figure out what they mean later. Bye!
See, that's a Herculean effort, because I don't even think I would have bothered, because they're also focusing on the subtitles, and also it's the only time where you see the characters' names on screen.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it sure fucking is, because let's go into that.
So, hey, I have 2.5 pages of notes, but I have almost an entire page is over this sequence.
Yep, same.
Okay, so I'm glad that you two did your due diligence, because I started to do that, and then I was like, oh, this plot synopsis is going to be 80 minutes long. So I ended up just saying, okay, I'm going to introduce the important people for the plot, and we'll introduce some other people later, but I ended up removing nearly everything that they said. So I'm going to ask you two to fill it in as we go.
Sure. Oh my God, this is fun.
Sure. No, I like this. This is fun. I think it was also helpful because I've seen this movie now probably like, I don't even know, maybe like over the 3 years since it came out, I've probably seen it like 15 times because I'm a glutton for punishment. And so it helps because you begin to latch on to what, like who's what and stuff like that.
Yeah, because folks, if you haven't seen this film or you've only watched it the one time, you probably have a good sense that we get introduced to every single character here, but not all of them end up really making an impact. Like they're always there, but the camera doesn't fixate on them as much. So I'm focusing on the people who kind of get mini arcs here.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about some that don't, if only because it's one of those where I'm like, I mean, again, I'll say like Riley, the gay one, I'm like, oh, I really wish we would have gotten more from this character, but it's also a thing where I'm wondering if during filming, if it's like Noé was like, oh, I'm more invested in these arcs that are happening over here, so I'm going to focus on those more in the final cut. But I was I got the character name, a very brief, very elementary description of their physical appearances, and then their basic answer to all these questions.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
And I will not be reading my descriptions of these characters because some of them are very
well, they're surface level, right? It's like
they're very surface level.
Well, I will, because some of them I think are hilarious. Like I'm looking at the notes right now, and for one of them I have Ivana, big hair, suicide. That's all I have.
right.
Omar, Middle Eastern guy with Jafar beard.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Terrible. Okay, so here are the people that I picked out as being the most significant. Feel free to chime in as we go. So we have Chauvinist David, who is played by Roman Gerlamic.
Buzzcut.
There we go.
Aggressive type, Selva's lover.
There you go. Although I don't think he is the most despicable character in this film.
He's far from it. But when you first meet him, you're like, oh, you're the most like
right,
like hunched over, like staring right at you, trying to just make an impression sort of person.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. We have secretly pregnant Lou.
Dancing is all she has.
Yeah, I wrote pregnant, everything to me. As in dancing is everything to me.
Mm-hmm. We have Taylor, played by Taylor Castle.
Boo.
Actually, we should say he's introduced with his sister Gazelle, who is played by Giselle Palmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sucks. He is terrible. I hate him.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
We'll get into that. But yeah, I just wrote Gazelle, Primpy, sister, and then Taylor, possessive, brother.
Yeah, possessive is the right word, for sure.
That is putting it mildly, but yes. Don't tell daddy.
We don't exactly know it at this point, but Gazelle is dating Omar, and he is played by Adrian Sissoko. It should be noted that Omar is I believe it comes out in this part, if not somewhere soon after, but he announces that he is a Muslim character, and that is something a lot of critics pulled up on.
Oh, see, I must have... Okay, I promise I was watching this movie, obviously, but for him I have he believes in paradise because he wants to. Like, that's what I
wrote as well. I don't think they ever bring up a religion, though.
Oh, interesting, because
Do they?
I found tons of articles where it was like, oh, isn't it very telling that in this film, which is like, we'll get into the makeup and how people identified it, but it was like, oh, the person who gets it first is the publicly out Muslim.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that too, and it's definitely something that made an impression, but it was also a thing where I was reading these pieces and I was like, I feel like you're kind of just assuming.
Well, okay, wait.
Like, Islam is a religion, it's not an ethnicity or a place of, like, that's not where you're from.
Well, but here's the thing, though. This is improv. So, like, what happens to Omar in this movie isn't a result of Gaspar Noé's writing.
No, but they're still able to read, like, a lot of political messaging into the film. No,
you're right. Sorry, that was a silly thing for me to say.
Sure. I mean, I was going to say, like, also, this was, like, there was the 5-page outline they started with. Like, there really was no writing, which, again, I don't care, because it still got something out of me.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, like, again, do you think that Noé was like, hey, but, like, for Omar's end arc, we're going to have them kick you out of this thing, and, like, you're out of the movie after this, you know?
I mean, Noé strikes me as someone who doesn't think about stuff on those terms. If you read interviews, he's like, yeah, be whoever you want to be. Like, who cares? And even, like, people talk a lot about the flag, which, again, I'm sure we'll talk about. But that was incidental. Like, the flag that's reigning over the school the whole time. Originally, it was like, well, we need something to cover up the monitors and all the equipment. Let's make it just, like, a big red sheet. And then they were like, oh, if you put it, you put blue there. Oh, you put silver there. Oh, it looks like the French flag. Like, it was an accident.
Yeah. Let's say we come back to some of this, because I have a lot of thoughts on the intent and the perceived intent that Noé gives off in the interviews versus maybe what's actually going on.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about that.
Okay, moving on. We have Lovers Ivana, who is played by Charlene Temple, as well as Psyche, who is Thea Carla Schott.
So, I, again, didn't remember this from my first viewing, but, like, she gives herself away in this opening interview.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she says, oh yeah, my roommate was doing acid in his eyes, and I wanted to get away from that.
Because I don't want to end up like Christian F., which I thought was funny. My thing, though, was... were either of you ever trying to parse out who drugged everyone? Because I kind of... because I was never really thinking about it, and in the interview I was like, oh, it's foreshadowing. Maybe she did it. I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, I guess. It was her.
Yeah.
But, like, the whole time there's so much shit going on. to the point where it like it's a MacGuffin. It was never where my mind was at the whole time.
I will confess that my first viewing, I treated it almost as a whodunit, even though I know that's not like the story this film is trying to tell.
Oh,
but
I
that
could
is
totally
how I
see
was
that.
watching it.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people who watched it that way.
Yeah, and so I mean, to me, I mean, I don't want to say it made it fun for me, but I found myself more engaged with it. But again, now on this viewing, knowing who it was and realizing it really doesn't matter who did it, I was able to again watch the film more in its own terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard from a few people, like friends of mine who have watched it, who have said that they find the reveal almost underwhelming because they feel like it doesn't explain anything, to which I just kind of like touch my nose and point at them and I'm like, yeah, you got it, because it's a MacGuffin. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that it happens, not who did it or why.
Exactly.
Also, she seems like a shit disturber. That's why she did it.
Yeah, an agent of chaos.
A little bit, Like, oh, people enjoy doing drugs with me because I have fun doing them. Yay.
And she is the one that composes herself the most throughout this entire ordeal.
Mm-hmm. So that's really like my predominant list. Obviously, there are lots of other characters. I have them listed later on, but were there other ones that you wanted to talk about initially during these interviews?
I mean, I think the cousins, brothers, Cyborg, and Rocco.
Yeah, they're cousins.
They're pieces of shit,
know.
Yes.
Yeah, like their conversation they have, which, by the way, I think in that segment of the film where we're going around listening to everyone talk to each other, theirs goes on the longest. And Cyborg acquits himself slightly better than Rocco, in my opinion, but oh my god, I did not want to listen to these guys talk anymore.
I mean, it's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
It is. It's also, it was, I remember when I saw the movie the first time, because the thing is, Noe will do something similar to kind of what he did in Enter the Void, where Enter the Void, in the edit, he'll have brief flashes of just black screen to simulate, because the whole thing is a POV shot. He'll have brief flashes of a black screen to simulate blinking, whereas he does that almost as just an edit technique, and it almost feels like you're like looking through a viewfinder.
Yes,
and like clicking through it like you would do when you're a kid. But every time it clicks to black, you're like, cool, finally we're with someone else. And like for a split second.
Oh god, we're
and then
still
you're like, fuck, it's still them. God damn it.
Honestly, the thing that Cyborg has going for him is that he's very pro rimming. I wrote that in my notes. He likes rimming. He's trying to convince his cousin to do it. I support this.
How do we know that you would latch onto that? Yes.
It's just, you don't see a lot of talk about that in, well, I was going to say mainstream cinema, which this is not, but...
Oh, you mean this
film.
French art house independent film that grossed $2 million?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. No. But we're not there yet. So really, the key takeaway is that they're all talking about art and fear and their hopes and their dreams, as well as a little bit of relationships and also their history with drugs. So again, I just think that this is a really good synthesis of some of the film's key interests. And it's fascinating because it's a clever way to introduce a very large cast, but it's still overwhelming in a way that is representative of the rest of the film.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this isn't a big part, so we don't have to really devote a conversation to it. But I love it. So we have Jennifer, who I wrote black and purple hair with bangs.
She's the person who has the drug stash.
Who has the
she's
cocaine
doing coke the whole time.
But Alaya, who I wrote long black hair and kind of model-y. She tried a line of coke once, and what does she spend the rest of the movie trying to do?
Get
cocaine from Jennifer, which is pretty par for the course when it comes to people who like cocaine.
That brings up something too. I like the way that these interviews, I mean, I actually think this movie is wonderfully edited throughout, but I do really like the way that these interviews are edited together, because you have Alaya saying, oh, I did a line of coke once, and then kind of shrugs and feels embarrassed, and then it cuts to Jennifer, who the whole time is just hoarding her coke. And also I like how she's an introvert, but she's constantly coked out. I thought it was a nice contradiction.
Well, because, I mean, okay, obviously people call alcohol the social lubricant, but cocaine is really, that times 1,000 for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the other big takeaways is we have the character of Dom, who is the bald black woman who is played by Muna Nansengar. And she talks about how if she doesn't like something, she'll just like address it and move on. And it's not a big thing. And she's one of the people who's responsible for kicking out Omar and then ultimately hitting Lou and like maybe causing her to miscarry.
I guess that's interesting. I mean, again, like, we've said this stuff came after the fact, which means they based their interviews on things they had already shot. I wonder if that was something that was, I don't know, like, as a director, if Noé's like, hey, but don't give away the baby with the bathwater. But it all makes sense, I guess, for me. None of this is spoilery, but it pays off better for me on a second viewing. Because I do think that this scene is very overwhelming on a first... I'm sorry, the movie's overwhelming, but like introducing all these characters this way is so fast. It's a lot to grasp onto for a first time viewing.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's a lot.
To the point where when I saw this at the festival, so this was like a midnight screening, I didn't really know what I was in for. I mean, I knew who Noé was, so I knew it was probably going to be button pushing. But even, the film, we start with that shot of Lou that we don't know it's Lou. And then we get the credits running backwards. And I was just like, wait, what's happening right now? What am I supposed to do with this?
Noé said, he's like, I hate end credits. I like the olden days when credits would air before the movie. And I was like, you know what? Honestly,
fair.
I'm okay with that too, because I like something that always bothers me about movie runtimes is that they're actually always 5 minutes shorter than the runtime says, because or unless you're a Marvel movie, in which case it's 10 minutes shorter than the runtime says, because it includes the end credits. And I like the fact that we get them out of the way first. And also, and I think I've said this in the podcast before, Joe, but I had a professor in college that was like, after our first like class screening, like she made us. We got it to leave, and she was like, "No, sit down. We show appreciation for everyone who worked on this film." So I do like, from a director standpoint, that having the end credits at the beginning makes you do that.
Yeah,
it's folding it in.
They are though kind of the text you can't read. Like every person's name is in red, whereas the rest of it's in a white font. But it's also like center justified. Yeah. So you can't really read it, especially when it gets to this giant ass text block of all the songs and the credits of all the soundtrack. It's like, which I kind of like too, because I'm like, oh, that song's in there? That's weird. And then like later on the song comes up and you're like, oh, it's not the context I would have expected. Okay. Yeah.
So the final interview is manager Emmanuel, who is played by Claude Gajan-Moll.
I do want to actually say she's credited as that. I think that's her dead name.
Okay, so that makes so much more sense, because I was like, Claude seems like a weird name.
If you go on IMDb, it does have Emmanuel in it.
Okay.
So on IMDb, it's Claude Emmanuel Gajan-Moll.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the catch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Emmanuel talks about, and this is kind of why I wanted to put that pin in the conversation, Matt, about what Gaspar Noé wants to do, or what he's saying he's trying to do with the film, because Emmanuel talks about how France helps to support art and dance and culture flourish, and how it's all like a big trademark. But this directly conflicts with what a lot of the other dancers have said, where it's just like, oh, dance isn't something that's important to people, and that's why they're all so excited to go to America. And I feel like this is a slight bit of condemnation about French cinema by extension, saying, oh yeah, we like to talk a big game about how we're supported to make national cinema, but really at the end of the day, the trick is to try to get your movies to America.
Yeah, and there are also some other moments in the interviews where they mention America, like Gazelle and Taylor. Taylor's like, oh my God, you're going to America? That's amazing. And Gazelle's like, I've been there. And he's like, what? With who? And then it cuts away. But like, you also have another dancer named Sela, and she's like, oh, America, like, I would love to go to America. It's the peak of Black culture.
Black culture, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing where I feel like if people watch this movie and they say, oh, pretty dancing that then goes bad, sure, that's definitely on the table. But I feel like if you're paying attention to the things that people are saying and the way that they interact, there is a lot more about like political identities and that kind of stuff going on too.
Actually, if we have any French listeners, I truly don't know if we have any, but if there is more insight that you can provide into that, obviously none of us are French, we don't live in France, please send it to us. I'd actually be very curious, because yeah, I mean, honestly, y'all are saying stuff that I did not pick up on.
Yeah, I read an academic article that I will reference in a minute, but whole sections of it were in French, and I was just like, oh, it's been a while. I don't think I'm going to be able to get everything I need out of this academic French article. Good times. Okay, so yeah, we get the studio credits, and then we get some dance music that kicks in, and this is also where we get the intertitle that says it's a French film and proud of it. And I thought the juxtaposition of coming right after Emmanuel says that is also like, okay, what do you mean by that?
Psych, JK, y'all.
I mean, I don't doubt that Noé has a certain level of patriotism. Like, he hasn't made films in English. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong there, but like his films are French through and through.
And also, I mean, he was born in Argentina, so he is Argentinian, I guess, by definition.
Okay.
But like, he was born in Argentina, and then to my knowledge, it was his family moved to Europe to escape a political coup.
Telling. So the entire film takes place in 1996. We are in a school basement. It is colored by the national colors of the French flag. And we have DJ Daddy, who is played by Katie Smile, playing music. And the film, a lot of people kind of allied over the interviews and say like, well, the movie just opens with this 7-minute dance sequence. And I won't lie, this is breathtaking. It is a single long take. The camera is mostly static, but there are pans, there are tilts up and down, but for the most part it is this dance troupe performing for the camera as though we are the audience.
So they did this in 16 takes, with the 15th take being the one used in the film. Noé said that the last 2 were the only usable ones.
Yeah, I imagine there must have been a certain amount of confusion and bustling and jostling each other.
I have never quite seen anything like this, which maybe speaks to how much I don't watch dance. But it is gorgeous and beautiful and perfect. I love this sequence.
It's also, I have to wonder, those earlier takes where he's like, oh, the other ones weren't usable. Like, did anyone get clocked in the face making this movie? Because there are a bunch of moments of choreography where you're like, Daddy's like pushing and pulling people together, or like later on in the dance circle, people are crumping and just fists flying everywhere. I was terrified watching it.
Well, and that's one of the things that shocked me when I found out it was improvised by non-actors, because all I could think of is, oh, they don't have stunt choreography. Like, they probably rehearsed it, but they maybe didn't know how to do it well. And you're right, even just in this dancing, there's a lot of aggressive dancing, there's posturing. Even in this opening sequence, they're, threading between each other, and it looks ripe for disaster/accidents.
Well, it's also like, it's such a unique take on character work, right? Because obviously, yes, we have the interviews, which is like probably the most conventional way to convey like what these characters are. But with this initial dance sequence and the one Matt was talking about later, it's just the overhead match cuts constantly. It's getting to know these characters based on how they express themselves through dance, and I think that's such an interesting way to do it.
Well, it's also great, too, because it tells, like, you can kind of track the entire dance number because it tells a story and you have different characters playing essentially different characters within the number. Because at first you have a bunch of the dancers coming together kind of extemporaneously. You have Gazelle and Aaliyah sort of voguing. There's another dancer named Rocket. He comes and he's sort of like welcoming people to join. And then you see like some of the women are kind of like eyeballing the dudes as they walk past. And they're like, oh, check him out. And then you have a bunch of the dudes come together and then they're like picking up David and kind of like moving him together like this weird like 5-legged like masculinity train. And then everyone comes together, and then you have like, you kind of also do have another giveaway that it was Psyche who drugged everyone, because the camera comes down and then she kind of struts past and kind of in a really staccato way kind of like jerks her limbs around while kind of making everyone in unison pose behind her, like she's kind of manipulating them from ahead of them.
Well, even her introduction in the dance is like, she is the center of attention and she strips, right? Yeah. So part of me was like, oh, she's the one who wants to be the center of attention and she wants everyone to kind of orbit around her.
That they do.
So I should note that one of the things that always comes up, if you start to research this film, if you read reviews, almost everybody will talk about this scene as a kind of like before the fall moment, right? Like, this is like an Ideal Benetton ad because we've got multiracial makeup of like different skin tones. We've got a bunch of queer representation and stuff. And they talk about how this is almost an idealized reflection of what a contemporary Paris/France makeup will look like. So this is where I'm going to bring in my academic article by Greg Hain, who It's not a very adventurous title. It just says Gaspar Noé's Climax in Context. And it's from the Australian Journal of French Studies, which I was like, wow, that is a uniquely specific academic journal. So Greg Hines says, basically, it's a bit of a clapback at people who are like, oh, yeah, this is such a great idealized moment. So he writes, this multicultural, multicolored theatrical space in which individual identity is performed and simultaneously transcended is precisely what many have seen or wanted to see in Climax. Yet this interpretation only be maintained if we willfully misread the film and allowed ourselves to be dazzled by the spandex sparkles and spectacle of the first half and not see the latent violence behind the language and body language of the characters on screen. Violence that is actualized in the film's second half in such a way that it is impossible to read this latter section as a come down from a bad trip.
Yes.
It's just like, people want to make it really easy and say, oh, well, the film starts off and they're all so good together. And you're like, even the way that this dance is structured tells us that these people don't actually get along. And this is not like, oh, this is what France could be.
Okay, but like even in the interviews though, like, I mean, actually, isn't it the cousins that are like, oh, there's going to be gays there? Like, I've never worked with gays before. So there's tension ahead of time, like, despite the synchronicity of this dance number.
Oh, yeah. And the way that a lot of the straight-coded characters will talk about not just their queer counterparts, but like the men of this group will talk about women. It's like very derogatory, very misogynistic. Like, yeah, they're talking about holes. And part of this, I think, is that the film is increasingly sexual. Like, it's part of what the film is interested in unpacking. But it's just like, oh, these people don't all respect one another.
Well, it also becomes increasingly performative in my, at least in the way that I watch the movie, especially when you get fucking Cyborg and Rocco talking about eating ass and spreading legs open and like fucking on the flag and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It gets increasingly misogynistic in machismo, but it also, like, there's one cutaway where you get like daddy talking about wanting to take drugs, but having to be in a safe space with his boyfriend. And then it cuts to like Rocco and Cyborg talking about just fucking anything in a skirt and how like some of them are really bad at sex and stuff like that. Yeah. It gets to a point where it's like, okay, you're getting a little tipsier and you're looking at each other in the eyes a lot as you say this. Yeah. Like rewatching it, I was like, were they meant to also like almost be coded queer, like repressed?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. And I know it's acid and like whatever, but like I always, and like, you know, the 2 or 3 years since I've seen this movie, I just view this as very much this is just like a microcosm of society, and like it's like everyone going to their basest, deepest, darkest impulses. And so I did pick up on what you're talking about, Matt, between these two characters. Unfortunately, we never really see anything that comes. Honestly, I don't even know what happens to these two characters in the end of the movie.
Well, Cyborg ends up fucking Aaliyah, and then they're shown asleep together at the end. We can get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy to lose track of people, but you're not wrong, Trace. It's I mean, the trajectory of the film in its most simplistic, reductive kind of way is that, yes, they all start together, and then by the end of the film, they're more or less divided and only interested in looking out for themselves and their own most basic needs. But I do think it's more complicated than that. But the fact that so many critics wanted to simplify and just sort of suggest like, oh yeah, this is Noé saying France as a whole is the dance at the beginning, and then all you need to do is introduce like LSD, aka conflict or something, and then it'll all fall apart. It's like, well, it's a bit more than that. Like, critics kind of took the easy way out.
I just wanted to be able to use microcosm so I could sound smart.
There we go. Okay, you fit it in. Cash that check, baby. You got that $20 word in.
I think I used that during Mother 2, actually, so you're welcome, everybody.
The word of the day is microcosm. Try to use it in a sentence. Okay, so the dance is fantastic. Absolutely great. Yeah. And then after that, we learned that this is like basically the final rehearsal before they go on tour with this thing, and everybody just wants to really fucking cut loose and party. Emmanuelle is not really here for that because she is sort of mommish, and she tries to give choreographer Selva, Sofia Boutella, some notes, and Selva's like, that's great, let's talk about it later. I see sangria, everybody wants to dig into that shit.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if I'm going to like wanting to cut loose at a party, I am not drinking fucking sangria. That is a hangover waiting to happen. Where is the liquor?
This is a brunch drink, Emmanuel. Unless we're going out for a little bit of a kiki at about 11 a.m. and it's bottomless sangria, like, no, this is not a party drink. Come on. Okay, so as Noé weaves his camera among the dancers, because people sort of break off and they're having conversations and doing that kind of stuff, we start to get a better sense of the relationship. So we see that David is courting Selva. Taylor is, as we mentioned, very overprotective of his sister, and he does not like Omar. And Lou is mysteriously tired. And she's not drinking.
Put that in your back pocket, everyone.
Well, I actually put in my notes originally. I was like, and Lou is pregnant. And then I was like, oh, she didn't say that. We don't learn that until later.
Right.
I mean, they're not subtle cues, though.
Well, not even, no, because the next intertitle is Birth is a Unique Opportunity. And I suppose you could read that in multiple ways, but...
Well, actually, no. So, Matt, I'm assuming you have more for this because your statement earlier about how, oh my God, what is the...
Oh, antinatalism?
Antinatalism. There you go.
Yes, and I want to be clear. This is not something I completely agree with. I definitely find it fascinating, and when I'm in a very dark place, it's a perspective where I'm like, yes, I definitely understand that, and I see where you're coming from. And one of the quotes from Cioran that I wrote down is he says, "Our obsession with birth, by shifting us to a point before our past, robs us of our pleasure in the future, in the present, and even in the past." And watching this movie, well, that's part of that too. He also has one quote, which is a little bit more cantankerous, where he says, "I long to be free, desperately free, free as the stillborn are free."
Oh, wow. That is some dark ass shit.
Yeah, that's... Ooh,
yeah,
boy.
No, I'm not going to do this the whole time. But no, it's... I mean, I've never wanted kids. Even as long as, even when I was a little kid, when people would be like, oh, I'm going to have kids, and, maybe I would name them this, I would sort of, play along with that, because looking back, I realized it was out of obligation, because I was, 7 years old, and I was like, yeah, cool, sure. That's what you do. There are multiple reasons I don't want to have kids. A big one of them is it's and again, this is me speaking, I'm not telling anyone what to do, but for me personally, I just don't, watching something like this, I'm like, yeah, exactly. I don't understand how you could bring someone, willfully bring someone into the world already knowing how much horrible shit is constantly happening, knowing what could possibly happen to them personally and specifically, and then just having to anticipate even already knowing what's happening currently, and then not even knowing what could happen in the future.
Right.
I don't even disagree with what you're saying. I find it's a very, I'm going to say, selfless outlook, and maybe people disagree with me, because for me, my lack of desire to have children is purely selfish. It's too much money. They take too much time out of your life. The only benefit for me to have kids, in my opinion, is that they will take care of you when you're old, if they like you.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the first two, I also agree with too, but it also reminds me of that line from Frances Ha where she's tipsy at dinner, and she's like, I love it when people are like, oh, I used to be so focused on myself, and now I'm not because I have kids. But, it's you. it's a mini you. You made it. You're still obsessed with yourself.
I mean, Joe and I'll talk to Joe about this all the time, because it's when my husband and I got married, we thought that as gay men, that was the one right we were afforded, to not have people ask us about kids. But literally the year after we got married, it was like, oh my God, so are y'all going to have kids anytime soon? And we're like, no, this is the one thing we get.
No, that's that's the one right that I get as a single asexual person. No one, it never even comes up.
You're like, oh, you can't even ask me about it, so don't even waste your time.
Absolutely not. Don't even bother.
But so tell me though, do you want kids? Are you?
Oh my God, stop it.
You might change your mind later, right? I mean, come on, you don't know now.
I'll find the right person. Someone will be able to change me. They'll turn me. And then America will adopt better healthcare, so I'll feel more secure bringing someone else into the world.
Oh, absolutely. That's going to happen soon. Yeah. I mean, I think part of this, and sort of redirecting it back to the conversation about the film specifically, just because we are about to talk about Emmanuel and her son Tito, but there's something to be said about how people feel comfortable imposing their will on other people, and it often comes up around the relationship that we as a society have about whether or not you should get married and have kids. There's a lot of societal pressures. And I think part of this is that we we want people to fit into certain molds and do things that have been acknowledged as like conformity. So we should all aspire to get married. We should all aspire to have children. And then, yes, all the benefits of having them look after us when we get old will be great. But the reality and what the film Climax is kind of telling us is that at the end of the day, you will ultimately make decisions that are about yourself and your bodily autonomy. And I don't know, in a way, I respect Climax for saying, well, you're probably going to have to fuck over other people to get what you want, especially in LSD-related situations.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, look, self-serving, selfishness, whatever. I am a firm believer that people are inherently selfish because, yes, you can have selfless attributes and you can make selfless decisions, but I really, really do believe, and maybe it's too dark, but like that people are inherently selfish. And unfortunately, like sometimes being selfish won't affect other people, sometimes it will. And I mean, this is where we go back into intent, right? Like, I can be selfish my entire life without intending to hurt anybody. But fortunately, that's not how it works.
Or you could be selfish and other people just happen to, like, you just happen to compliment someone else's behavior. They happen to compliment yours, and it just happens to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Yeah, the film is certainly bringing out a bit of a nihilist streak in us, isn't it?
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, someone says you could be the most charitable person, the most selfless person in the world, but if someone has a gun to you or a stranger, are you going to, and says one of you has to die? And granted, that's maybe someone will say, no, I could never make the decision to have someone else die, so I will take the bullet. I have less faith in humanity in those scenarios.
Sure.
Trace, you're just talking about the plot line of The Box right now.
I like The Box.
I love The Box, and I don't care what anyone says.
Oh, I know. It's good. It's good. All of them, everyone. It's good.
It's good. The last 30 minutes don't really make a lot of sense, but maybe I'm due for a rewatch. Maybe we're due for a rewatch, Joe.
Oh my god. Stop it.
I was like, what are you getting at here?
Okay, so people sort of split off into paired conversations and we get to know a bit more about them. So, we hear that some of them have parents in comas, they talk about God, they talk about the flag, they talk about sex, taking drugs in safe spaces, getting married and having kids. This is also where we get more insight that David is kind of crude and horny, but all the women still seem to kind of want him.
And Riley really wants to have sex with him.
Yes, yeah. And all the stuff with Cyborg and Rocco, and it's very tedious. This is, to me, probably the most odorous part of this entire movie, is I'm just like, can I hit fast forward on these two?
Well, why do these two characters get, I want to say, half the screen time in this sequence?
I mean, no way, as much as I love his movies, he's a troll, so...
Right?
I mean, he's a troll, but I also... It is something that I do find fascinating. Again, it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch, and I would say this part, it's like 15 minutes straight of just flipping back and forth between characters, and it's always a 2-shot or a 3-shot, and it's really well done. But I think in some ways it's some of the most substantial stuff in the movie and some of the most fascinating, because you do get to let people it's the idea of like people are only, expressing what they actually think if, the person they're expressing something about isn't actually within an earshot.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially watching these characters' hypocrisies kind of build and build, especially as the film cross cuts between them. It's also a matter of, I mean, this stuff happens. Like, people talk like this, and I feel like in this movie, like, obviously I'm not going to say put this content in everything because it just wouldn't fit, but this sort of stuff, like, people talk like this all the time. I feel like it's sort of, you're just lying to yourself if you try to deny it or shoot away. So that's why I think it is important to, as much as uncomfortable as it makes me, and as much as I hate these characters, have to watch two dudes talk about, like, grabbing a woman, throwing her on the floor, and then sticking it in, because there are so many people who talk about that, and so many people who actually do that.
Yeah, this was actually really interesting to watch the week after Assassination Nation, because we got a similar kind of vibe in some of the party scenes. It's just that it wasn't filmed in the same way. Like, there, it feels a bit more like Sam Levinson is giving us a music video, kind of a bit more acceptable, like it goes down easier. Whereas here, you're just like, oh, we're just eavesdropping on people's private conversations, and these people are kind of garbage.
Yeah. My question, though, as to why they get the most screen time is less so like, why am I watching these two asshole characters say despicable things? And more so about, like, we have limited time with all these characters. I would like to see other characters before the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I can't argue with that. Mm-hmm. I think because, again, this is an ensemble of 24 characters, if I counted correctly. I mean, you're also including one of them who's like, how old is this kid? 7?
Yeah.
Probably.
Like a 7-year-old child who's just sitting around watching everything happen. Well, I guess at this point he's been put to bed, but still.
Mm-hmm. Guessing how old the kid is. It's like that Arrested Development. What could a banana cost? $10? How old is this kid? 2?
2, 10, somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
13?
Oh, one thing I did also want to notice is on a rewatch, I realized, or I guess I reminded myself, one little detail that I do like is that Tito's costume design and Lou's costume design are almost identical.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she's not even his mother. She's the one she's the one. Oh, and have we talked about this yet? How she's talking about she's considering having an abortion?
No, we haven't talked about it. We've mentioned abortion, but not specific to this character.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it now, though, if you like, because the only other time it'll come up is when she confesses that she is pregnant to Selva.
Well, I mean, because we do have this. They talk about abortion a little bit in their first conversation here, I guess. Yeah, in this scene, but not much. Because I think Lou asked her if she's ever had an abortion before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's part of the. That's actually. I think there's a very dark sense of humor to it that's kind of cutting because the title card of Birth is a unique opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that comes up is Lou says, "Have you ever had?" Like she's like, "This is not a good place for a child. Have you ever had an abortion?" And Selva just kind of is coy and is like, "I think it's good to have a choice." And then it smash cuts to Birth is a unique opportunity, like almost like talking to the audience, like it's incredibly dark. But I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. But I like that that's character development for both Lou and Selva, and then also Noé, doing his trolly finger pointy thing at the audience.
Yeah.
All in one. He's getting it all in. It's great. Okay, so in case you found all of that boring or you were tired of Rocco and Cyborg, this is where we get the second extended dance sequence. We've talked about it a little bit, but the important thing to note is that the dancing has become significantly more aggressive to the point where it looks like people are actually starting to fight each other. Like, we've seen people get pulled into the circle, people getting pushed out. Some of the twerking and stuff actually looks like people are going to get kicked in the face if they're not careful. Yeah. So they're clearly starting to progress and, I guess, deteriorate in that regard.
I mean, yeah. They're starting to get high.
Basically, yeah. This is also where the music starts to change, and we do also get the list of musicians and crew in very quick succession in different fonts and so on.
What do y'all, I mean, we don't have to talk about this for a long time, but like, why do you think this is here? Is it just to break up like the pre-high and the post-high, during high part of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's sort of him being like, welcome to the madness, now we're really in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like, too, that it's literally a change in perspective as well, right? Like, we saw the dance from one vantage point, which was that static camera where they were playing to us. And here it's like, again, we're eavesdropping, but we're also seeing the action from a different point of view, which is like, oh, this is what drugs are going to do. And it also anticipates the end of the film where we flip it upside down.
And this is honestly, so this is presented, and I think it is, like, because sometimes when you say it's presented as a single take, it's because, okay, we're going to, like, go to a wall, and it's going to black out, and that's really the cut that you don't see. I think this is actually a single 42-minute long take, and I don't know how this
Trace,
works. I have no idea.
Wait, are you suggesting the back half is one uninterrupted take?
I mean, look, I have read another long take central to the film lasts over 42 minutes, almost half of the film's runtime. And Noé stated that I was operating the camera, but I had no idea how I was going to frame the scenes until immediately before I was on the set. I wanted the second half of the movie to be one continuous master shot, but how it was going to be, I had no idea.
Okay. Sorry, it sounded like I was being cunty, but I just meant like, no, the stuff that we've already seen there has clearly been edits, and then I realized,
yes.
No, for a split second, I thought you were talking about like the overhead shot, if it was like 42 minutes of footage and they just splice it together.
No. So after we get the list of crew,
yes,
that's the single 42-minute shot.
See, that
right.
blew me away, because the thing is, when you first see the movie, or maybe maybe other people pick it up the first time they see the movie, but the first time you see it, all the different rooms have different lighting. The camera's constantly moving. There's a continuous sense of momentum. And so I just, in my mind, compartmentalized all of these separate set pieces in a way that your brain would actually process editing.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the movie, I didn't think anything of it, of the latter half. And then when I did see it like a second or third time, I was like, holy shit, that's one take. Holy crap. If it is, I mean, it's possible that there are some, because like there's some things like Sofia Boutella had talked about how she would do like a take that's like 8 to 10 minutes. I don't know where in the film she's referring to those takes happening, because there are a few moments in the back half where the camera will do a whip pan. It'll be kind of dark, or like later on, it's like the strobing. So you don't know if they cut it there.
See, I was wondering if that's just like during the conversations from earlier, because obviously like those were probably all just filmed and he just picked and pulled the conversations that he liked and put them in the film. I also think that this master shot like adds to the anxiety for me. Like the fact that there isn't an edit, like me, like the critic in mind, I'm like, there's something wrong that we haven't had an edit yet.
Yeah. Well, it's also funny too, because you realize, oh, we're watching this breakdown in real time, which is also kind of funny because they're under the impression that this thing lasts the entire night. And it doesn't really, I mean, you don't really get a gist of what time it is at this point when we come back from the smash cut to black and it's like, okay, now we're in it.
When so preparing to watch this movie again, I was like, okay, this is like a 2.5 hour movie. Let me get prepared. It's a fucking 96-minute movie. This movie feels 3 hours long. And again, I'm not saying that as a knock, because like it's just like the way that it is, it's designed, I think, to feel that way. But oh my god, I cannot believe like the true mayhem of this movie lasts about 30 minutes.
Yeah, because this black insert and then the continuous take from now on is at the 47-minute mark.
Yep.
So, we get the sense that definitely something is kicking in, and Noé matches his camera movements. So before they were a bit fluid, they were kind of steady-camish, and here they are far less steady. The camera is actually prone to like almost like Dutch angles, like if Noé was a person in this room, it would be like, oh, I'm getting tipsy and I'm seeing everything by swaying side to side and sort of peering at things at an awkward angle.
Yeah.
So the first sign that something is wrong is when Psyche just begins peeing on the dance floor, and this sets Selva off. So she begins going around asking people what's happening. And Lou just kind of pieces out here. She says, I'm going to go to bed, and everyone zeroes in on Emmanuel because they determined that something has happened with the sangria. They think it's spiked. And because she made it, they accuse her. She says it's not her because she's also been drinking it. So she's feeling things too.
There is one thing I want to bring up, and this might be a nitpick. Did either of you ever think that the shot of Psyche peeing on the floor looked weird?
Like, what do you mean?
Like the blocking of it, it looked like it was like, because they're very, very, there's maybe like 2 or 3 things in this movie that take me out of it. And this is one of them. But I'm like, did they just give her like a water bottle? Because the blocking, it's like she's like holding her hands behind her back and squeezing something, and it looks like she's peeing. And I wasn't sure if that was what happened. I don't know if she actually did pee on the floor, but it was something where I was like, huh. I don't know if anyone else had an issue with that, but that was something where I was like, am I the only person who thought this?
It's definitely weird, but I find that I'm so fixated on, wait, what is she doing? Oh gosh, okay. And I'm looking at her face because she doesn't seem to be acknowledging that she's even doing it. Like she's so out of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's probably by design so that I'm distracted and I'm not considering, hey, how did they make her do that? Is she actually peeing?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because like watching someone just stand up and just start pissing on the floor, that is a jarring thing to just happen in a movie.
Well, maybe for you guys, but
I don't know what your Saturday looks like, but
I'm not going to discriminate on days. If I feel like it, I don't feel like getting up.
Look, I'm just saying I'm wearing my adult diaper as we record right now. So
I was going to say earlier, you were like, oh yeah, we can pause recording if you have to go pee. And it's like, you know what, guys? I peed 4 times.
You didn't even know.
No, I just think about like in water sports. Do they have special sheets, or is it just sheets they use?
They do have special sheets if you really want to get into it. Yeah,
there you go. I mean, I don't want to really get into it. I'm just, oh god, you got to get those sheets. They probably cost a lot of money, and the cleanup just sounds like a nightmare.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
I'm not kink shaming water sports. By all means, y'all do you.
No, you sound curious, actually.
Oh.
So when they decide that it can't be Emmanuel because she claims that she is also suffering from the effects of this, they then turn on Omar because he didn't drink any. So this is when Dom orders that he be thrown out into the snow and the door is locked, and we will not see Omar again until the end of the film when he is basically an icicle.
Yep, that's it.
That's it, yeah. So this is when Emmanuel sees that Tito has actually awoken. She had previously put him to bed, but he is back up and he is drinking the sangria. So she locks him in an electrical closet for protection.
I forgot this kid drank the sangria, and I am very happy the camera does not enter this closet with him because oh my God, like, oof.
Yeah. So, Trace, you teased this back when we covered Mother. You were like, oh, this will not be the only child death that we cover in this series. So, folks, if you were wondering, this is the other one.
Yep, he dies.
He dies, yeah.
But not for a while. We hear those screams for another, 30 minutes.
Constant. Oh my God. There was a point where I was just like, everyone's screaming.
Everyone's screaming, but it's also the sound mixing is so good. And oh my God. Noe and Benoit Debie, which it's funny because Debie wasn't, the DP, he wasn't shooting it. It was Noe shooting everything of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the two of them orchestrate such a brilliant sense of space, and the sound mixing is so integral in that too. Because you just hear this 7-year-old boy's screams kind of fade into the background, and then they come back. But no, it's some good stuff. It's super fun.
Did y'all do any research to see? Because obviously, you can overdose on drugs, but can you overdose and die from too much acid, or is it just permanently fuck with your brain?
Yeah, you can just die from anything, but
I feel in theory, I guess you can, but I feel like it's more a matter of the thing about it too is with something like Climax, I feel like it's more using it as a vessel for everyone to flip their shit.
Yeah,
yeah. But I don't know if that's possible. You hear people talk about acid flashbacks, and it's I remember reading something when I was in middle school about how it can sometimes
really fucks up your brain.
It fucks up your brain, but it's it can embed itself, and this is one of those things. It's I don't know what the size of a grain of salt to take with that, but it's again, that was public schooling health information for 7th graders.
Dare.
Again, never done acid, but I've done MDMA, Molly, and stuff, and there was a good period for about a year. I had taken a Molly.
You did a marijuana.
I know. I bought some at a dance, a DJ set that I was at, and basically for the next 6 months, I was reading Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects, and there's a whole chapter in the book where the main character takes Molly or ecstasy with her little sister, and the chapter just explains what their high is like. And reading it, I started feeling like I was rolling again. It was the weirdest sensation I'd ever had in my entire life. So that's at least something that's manageable to me. I can't imagine going through a flashback of a hallucinogen. I don't know.
Yeah, I will say I'm glad that Noe doesn't make efforts to put us into their shoes so that we're seeing what they're hallucinating. Particularly when we get to Sofia Boutella's possession style manic breakdown. I'm always very glad that we don't try to see some reproduction of what she's going through. Just seeing it from the outside is harrowing enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it makes it more, I don't know. I think that makes it scarier.
Yeah.
I don't need a bunch of CGI, whatever, monsters or whatever, walls moving and shit. It's scarier to see them reacting to essentially nothing.
But it's funny, right? Because some people will say, oh, well, this isn't really a horror film because all you're watching is people go on drugs. You're just like, okay.
That is a lie.
No, that's a filthy, filthy lie. It's fun. I don't know. The thing about if you were to see what they would actually be seeing, just logistically and in terms of working with this budget or this sort of production, it would look terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, too, is this is, again, I think, at least for me, it was just such a testament to how involving this entire experience was. But the first time I watched it, I never even considered the idea of, we don't see what they're seeing because I'm already freaking out as much as they are anyway.
Yeah.
I guess that's just it's a shorthand way to be look, these people are tripping balls, haha. But I also feel too, a lot of times acid is portrayed in movies as a funny thing. It's usually, I don't want to say the butt of jokes, but it's usually for more funny scenes where the people are tripping balls and they're going crazy, but it's funny.
Yeah.
You don't often see it done this way.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually see a studio-produced American version of this where this is a comedy and people just like trip balls and it's ha-ha funny, and then at the end of the day, we've got a really funny experience that we talk about at reunions 10 years down the road.
God, that sounds awful.
You know what, though?
It's The Hangover 4.
Well, no. Hey, like, if you're remaking Climax, no, I don't want that. But that being said, like, we take the same premise, a dance troupe or whatever, a workplace office, like, accidentally gets dosed on acid, and we get to watch them like be high tripping for like an hour and a half. I'd watch that movie.
I think you're just describing mayhem.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, sure. I like mayhem. I know you don't really like mayhem, but I do.
I like mayhem. Okay, so Selva ends up checking on Lou because, of course, Lou pieced out before a bunch of this went down. And this is when Lou then confesses, yes, she's pregnant. She doesn't really know what she's going to do about it. And you think, oh, this is really heartwarming. Okay, so things are falling apart, but these two are good friends. So this is when Dom comes in and she goes, wait, what? You didn't drink any of this. You must be the one who did this. And I throw out Omar. And then she just starts punching Lou in the gut and kicking her in the gut. And you're like, ah, shit. Oh my God.
This hurts me to watch.
It's so hard to watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It feels especially cruel, as Noé has said he wanted to make us feel, in part because we literally just learned that she is confirmed pregnant. And then it's like, cool, let's kick that baby right now. It's like,
birth is a unique opportunity, y'all.
The thing too is it's especially depressing because she's actively having conversations with Selva about whether or not she should have an abortion, or at least she's prodding the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
But
and the decision is made for her.
Yeah, and it's made for her. She didn't even get to make the choice, which I think is probably the most tragic part of all of this. I mean, for now, because we'll get to 2 minutes later into this runtime and what's happening to her then.
It's kind of an interesting inversion, though, of what you typically see in abortion storylines, right? Because usually it's, no, you're forced to keep the baby.
Yeah,
well,
or like at the most, like, daring, I guess, if you want to call it that. You have something like Juno where like Elliot Page walks in and is like, see, like, ew, this office it's not doing it for me. I don't like the vibes. I can't do this. And then like runs out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because normally when you see like it's a miscarriage of type things that you normally see, but as opposed to, well, unless it's Saw 4, but
yeah, that too. So because of these actions, Lou ends up kind of escaping. We do get to hear more of Tito screaming as she wanders by. We also get to see Alia, who up to this point has been chasing Jennifer around, being like, hey, give me Coke so that I can compensate for this acid trip. Like, that will counterbalance the LSD. And she has inadvertently lit Jennifer's hair on fire in the kitchenette as Lou goes by.
I also don't know what the combination of those chemicals would do. Like,
I don't think they would cancel each other out.
Well, because stimulants can make you feel less drunk. Like, if you're wasted, like, and you take a stimulant of some sort, like, you're able to be more coherent.
But it's still a terrible idea because it fucks up your heart rate.
Absolutely, yes. Not a good idea. I don't know what the mix of a hallucinogen with a stimulant would do. That does sound like a terrible idea.
It sounds awful, but also it's like cutting back like maybe like 10 minutes earlier when they're just like, oh my God, we're all high, we're all on acid. And then Aaliyah's like, they're like, what's the cure? And Aaliyah or Dom are like, oh, it's Coke. And they're like, Coke. Okay, got it. And you're like, no, absolutely not.
You're on drugs. You're making bad decisions. Don't take more drugs.
Just go to bed, okay?
Right? If they had just gone to bed and locked themselves in, most of these people would probably be okay.
Well, the ones that are doing Coke are not going to bed.
Right. So we follow Lou back into the main room, and this is where everyone turns on her. So God. She is the new punching bag, and they actually actively cheer for her to abort the child and hurt herself. So she begins punching herself and then also cutting herself. And she does this until Eva, who is played by Leah Vlamos, stops her.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, and it's also just so overpowering. This is the first time where I think the soundtrack is overtly building up the movie, because it's set to Rollin' and Scratchin' by Daft Punk, which is just throbbing electro clash pop, or just like EDM essentially. And again, you have an entire throng of people, like they're literally saying "kill yourself," like it's not even coded or anything.
No.
Well, and there's something about her cutting her face, cutting her arms with this knife. I mean, it's very reminiscent, Joe, of that scene in Hellraiser 2 when the guy keeps cutting himself on the mattress.
Right.
These aren't like fatal cuts that she's doing, but every single slice just hurts.
Well, it's also she's cutting her face. I mean, again, I'm assuming it's not like she's slashing her throat, but even before that, she's having a breakdown and just experienced something massively traumatic, and she's being egged on by a dozen people that she doesn't really know that well. And so she starts punching herself in the stomach, and then you see blood on her hands as she pulls her hands from her crotch.
I do love, too, that the one sober person in this film still undergoes a weird phrasing, but like still undergoes a psychotic break.
Yes.
Yeah, driven to the brink by other people having a psychotic break.
Exactly.
Good times.
It's Twitter.
Oh my god. So after this, Eva takes Lou away, and we sort of circle back to what are other people up to. So we haven't touched base with David in a little bit. So we see Riley, who is played by Lakhdar Daridi. That's the virginal twink who really wants to fuck David, to which I'm just like, oh god, no. So Riley is trying to put moves on David, and David angrily rejects him, and then he goes after Selva, who is back in the main room, and she rejects him, so he starts like punching and kicking doors and sofas and all this shit. And as they move past, we get to hear more Tito screaming to be let out. And then this is where Selva stumbles down the hall, and she goes into her own dancing fit psychotic break.
The shot of her just staring at the wallpaper with the trees is just that to me I actually found very funny, because it's like she's freaking out and then she's just caught by this visage and she's like
Oh, my favorite part is where she like goes into the bathroom and she catches a glimpse of her own reflection and it's scary.
Oh, you get scared?
She just goes, ah! And there were two things about this. One of them is about her seeing the forest wallpaper. I don't know if it was a chicken or the egg sort of situation, or they planned. Well, I'm assuming it wasn't entirely planned, but like one of the collaborative methods was like all the actors coming up with their own character names. And Butella was like, I don't know what to do. And Gaspar is like, well, I mean, I had this grandmother named Selva, and I thought it was a beautiful name. And she's like, yeah, I'll do. She's like, that sounds okay. And he's like, are you sure? Like, is that fine? And she's like, yeah, why not? And that means forest. Oh. And that's the thing that calms her down. And then the other thing, too, was she also mentioned how her breakdown was basically the last take. And so Noe was like, oh, do something a little extra. We're not going to have to reset or anything, so you can just do whatever. And so that's why she throws her hair under the sink and wets her hair. That's why she does that whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a very different look for Butella. I mean, she always has a certain athleticism and like fluidity in the roles that I've seen her in. And I think that this one is fascinating because really Selva's not a character. Like, I wouldn't argue that this movie is filled with characters in that we get a real sense of who they are. But by sheer virtue of being the name actor in the film, I feel more empathetic to her. But also just, she looks really fucking good. Like, I like her with this hair, and I think her costume is among the most striking, and I don't know. I like her.
That also reminds me of something else that struck me with this particular breakdown is because, which is funny to say, like this one breakdown.
Of the many, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The choreography is a variation of the choreography of the opening scene, because in the opening she does this thing where she kind of does the splits and then glides across the floor, and then kind of turns around and then flips her legs back up. And here she's doing the same thing where she's kind of gliding across the floor on her shins with her knees pointed out, and then she kind of like pirouettes into the curtain and then does the splits, and so like pushes her entire torso up against the wall.
Yeah, she basically like fucks the wall for a bit.
She like fucks the wall, and then she sees the forest, and the forest is like completely kills her libido. But it was always something to me of watching these nuggets of these characters go about, their own specific trips and have their own specific climaxes, as it were.
Right.
The idea of them sort of being broken down to their base persona in a weird way for her is kind of encouraging, because it shows that even at her most primordial state, she is a dancer, and what she put into the world in that opening dance sequence is what she actually does naturally.
Right.
And it was something kind of fascinating, but also it made me think of the idea of this is another thing that Cioran had written about, the idea how in art you don't really need much talent to find the infinitesimal. Like, talent couldn't matter less. And here it's sort of the flip side of that. You have someone who is kind of unconsciously acting out whether it was something that, whether it's, she's focused, because her character, she's sort of like she's a choreographer, but I always got the gist that she was sort of like a failed dancer and it never really took off for her. But then she's able to actually live this out kind of just on autopilot, and it shows that it is really who she is at her core.
Right. And that comes through with some of the other characters as well, right? Like, I'm always sort of impressed that many of them continue to dance even as they also become more violent and more sexual. But yeah, it really comes through the most in Selva. And she's also, I think, the most empathetic character to the other people. Like, she checks on people, she tries to comfort them. Like, she doesn't get aggressive to anybody.
Yeah, she's like mother hen.
Yeah, she doesn't, but it's also kind of sad though, because in the scenes early on where everyone's talking about each other, you get multiple characters being like, who the fuck is this woman? Like, who's Selva? Who gives a shit about Selva?
Well, that's the thing too, because it's important to remember that, like, outside of the people who are like paired up, like, these are all people that don't really know each other.
Yeah, because we learned that they've only been rehearsing that central performance that we saw at the beginning of the film for 3 days. So arguably, even though they're about to go on tour, they're, as you said, Trace, they're relative strangers.
They're new coworkers, nothing more. Like, it's like, they're not just a dance troupe that created this and they're just doing this.
See, it is a workplace comedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So speaking of comedy, as Selva is making her way through this is where we learn that Emmanuel has lost the key to the door that Tito was locked behind. So now she's got to go around on her hands and knees looking for that motherfucker.
Oh, also, do we specify that it's an electrical closet?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just want to confirm.
That'll be important in a couple minutes.
But but this child of indeterminate age is tripping his balls off in a pitch black electrical closet. Like,
yeah. Very glad that we only have to hear the screaming, and even the screaming is quite upsetting.
Mommy, there are cockroaches.
Oh God. The question is, are they real or not?
Yeah, I was kind of like, well, maybe there are cockroaches. It's pretty much an abandoned school.
Yeah, it is. It is an abandoned school.
God.
They do like an autopsy afterward. Like, the authorities come in and it's like, oh, this kid he had a lot of Coca-Cola in his system, but he was just like tripping on sugar. Like, there's no illicit substances at all. He was fine.
And lots of cockroach bites. So we see David get beaten up, and Taylor then draws a swastika on his forehead in lipstick.
Good is there significance to this?
You could see people trying to negotiate their thoughts about, like, the unity of the opening dance number, and then, like, oh, as soon as shit starts to fall apart, that's when the swastikas come out. But also, I do think it's of note that a character of color paints this on David, who is, I mean, there's only a few demonstrably white characters in this film, and David is a giant piece of shit.
It is also one of the, because it's textual that it's a race thing, because as, I can't remember who, I think it's Taylor, I think.
It is,
Yeah. So he yells at him as he's drawing the swastika, he says, white piece of shit.
Yeah.
Which is another thing which we can talk about more if you guys want to. There are the people who don't like the movie, they think it is racist because, like, the earlier scene where a bunch of people are ganging up on Lou, I think almost everyone in that throng of people telling her to kill herself, they're all black.
Yeah. And arguably, like, we spent a lot of time talking about Rocco and the other guy whose name Cyborg, thank you.
The Mortal Kombat character. Wait,
there
no, I'm sorry, the DC character.
We spent a lot of time talking about how they seem to be among the worst characters, and you're like, okay, well, there's people of color, but it's tricky too, because I do think that the racial makeup of France is significantly different from our North American context, so I don't know how this falls along demographics over there, and whether this is kind of like, oh, this is a true microcosm.
Well, because I mean, again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, this isn't racist, because I don't think that's really my place. But I do think that, generously 2/3 of this cast are people of color?
I mean,
Sure.
I think we can easily say that there is racism in this film.
Right,
And
right.
in the same way that we can talk about how there's misogyny in this film, there's queerphobia in this film, and so on. Like, really, if we do look at this as emblematic of a social breakdown, then this is the party lines that people sometimes follow along.
But there's a difference between saying there is racism in this film and then the film is racist.
Right.
Yes, Trace, no one is saying the film is racist.
Well, no, that's what Matt just said. not he's saying that, but like people have said.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is like there are some like even some really close friends of mine. They despise it because they think it's incredibly racist. But then I've seen them talk on Twitter with other critics, and they're like, "Well, one, it plays into the horde mentality that the movie is kind of excavating out of these characters, and two, pretty much everyone in this movie is already fucking terrible to begin with."
Yeah,
that is true. I think, sorry, I lost my patience because I'm really getting tired of people being like, well, this film is this. And it's like, no, the characters are this. Like, unless you could go into Gaspar Noé's background and be like, oh, well, he said a bunch of absolutely terrible shit, and therefore this film is probably representative of his points of view. It's like, this is the political critique, people. Like, it's not that the film is racist. The film is documenting racism. It's commenting on the racism.
For sure.
Okay, so yeah, David is down. He's got lipstick on the forehead. This is when the lights go out and the red emergency lighting comes on. And I mean, honestly, if you thought any of these people were redeemable, a bunch of them immediately go, oh, Tito must have electrocuted himself.
Shit, Tito's fried.
Oh, wow. I mean, again, they are on drugs.
From this point forward, like, honestly, like, I mean, I got dizzy watching. I mean, not just because of the spinning camera that will eventually happen, but like this is an assault on everything. It is very hard to watch for me.
Well, it's also because it's really when you get to the nadir of everyone's behavior. Because at least up until this point, you're kind of juggling between these different arcs, and so you at least get someone freaking out by themselves, but they're not hurting anyone. And then you go back to someone committing an unspeakable act of violence against a pregnant woman and making her miscarry. And it sounds kind of patronizing the way I'm phrasing it, but it's like you really, in terms of how it ebbs and flows between who it's following on a given, or for a given like 5 or 8 minutes at a time, you would do get a sort of give and take of who you're able to latch onto. And then at this point, you're just sort of, it kind of just hits us like a stasis until the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I find that a lot of the film up to this point is kind of a bit of a roller coaster. Like, I'm really feeling my feels. And then at this point, it's almost where I hit my limit. And I just think, I don't know how much more I can empathize with people. I'm just watching things unfold. It's starting to get hard for me to make connections.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I am just a voyeur watching people lose their shit at the end of this movie. Like, and it's really hard to keep track of people. The lighting, I feel like I'm in there with these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are trapped in here with them.
Trapped, yes, I am trapped.
It is kind of a wonder, though, that it takes this long for it to become so, like, across the board incorrigible, especially if you compare it to something like Noé's first feature, I Stand Alone, which is like, this is the tone it starts at. And then that movie is this for 100 minutes.
Yeah, and I would say Irreversible is a lot of this for most of its runtime.
Irreversible is a lot of this, but at least Irreversible gets a sort of backwards catharsis in that it's structured, like its gimmick of like every scene is a long take, but every scene is, you see what was last and then you see the first thing last. It at least ends with Monica Bellucci happy and confident in her life and sitting on a towel in the park.
Sure, except that we know what's to come.
It is, but it's as the viewer, the movie is kind of telling you, well, you have to plow through the bad shit to get to the good shit. Whereas here, it's like, no, it's just feces everywhere.
It's only gonna get worse. Feces all the way down.
Feces everywhere.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Especially for Cyborg and Rocco.
Indeed. Okay, so thankfully we get a slight reprieve because Ivana drags Selva out of this. So we go down the green hallway into the blue bedroom. They kind of make out, and it's a little bit cute. And
I read this as they fucked.
But they do. I mean, it's kind of cute, but it's also, I mean, at this point, nothing is consensual at all.
Yeah.
But it is very much like she is dragging Selva into this bedroom on the far wing of the building and just starts pushing her basically onto the bed and stripping her shirt off. Yeah. Like, multiple people in this movie are sexually aggressive to the point where it is just assault. Like, it's harassment at baseline, and it's assault. Like, even fucking Riley, who is like, when stuff starts kicking in, he keeps caressing David, and David, time and time again, is like, I'm not interested. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. But then he finds solace and comfort in DJ Daddy.
There we go. Yes. Yeah. Which is basically where we're at. So David shows up and Selva kicks him out, and then he tries to go and hang out with DJ Daddy, who is with Riley, and they kick him out. So we follow David back, and he briefly sees Taylor making out with Gazelle, but then she runs off. And we follow her back to the main room, and then this is where the camera flips upside down. So if you weren't already overwhelmed by the change in lighting to the red emergency lighting, now we are completely upside down.
I wrote in my notes, in all caps, this is terrible.
I love this.
Oh, I love it.
I know that it's such a simple technique in a way, but the fact that it again recontextualizes the way that we're seeing all of these events, because all of a sudden now it looks like people are dancing and fucking and fighting on the ceiling, and like visually I'm overwhelmed, but I also really like it.
And it goes on for 7 minutes straight.
Yeah, I have no more notes about most of this except for the fact that Gazelle seizes and Taylor carries her away, and we do get to see David's head get beaten against the concrete floor, and this is another callback to the opening interview where Cyborg is asked about a fight that he has, and he talks about hitting someone so hard that he bashed someone's head into the ground. So you're like, oh, here we go.
So do we think David is dead?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe it's not important, like, who's dead or who's alive.
I mean, I'm curious of what you two think.
Okay, so I said off the top that I wanted to wait until we got to this point. And really, like, the movie is kind of over. Like, we follow this for what feels like an excruciating amount of time, and then...
I was going to say, he said 7 minutes, and I was like, but it feels like 70.
100%, yeah. And then the police come in, and we kind of get overhead, still upside down shots of all of these different people. And we see people, like, there's vomit. We see people in beds. I never read anyone as being dead except Emmanuel, who has taken her own life because she couldn't get to Tito. And then we do see Tito's body, and presumably he has electrocuted himself. But I just read everybody else as, like, they're kind of sleeping it off. But then I saw a bunch of reviews that say, oh, yeah, they're all dead. Or most of them are dead.
Yeah, I wouldn't say all of them. I mean, also one note, I think it's funny, this entire sequence is set to an instrumental of Angie by the Rolling Stones, which would be sort of ha-ha funny if you weren't already exhausted.
Right.
But no, some of them, I mean, like, so Rocket, one of the dancers, he has the all-brown outfit. I mean, he's choked to death on his vomit. Oof. Like, he's just laid out and there's vomit next to him. Mm-hmm. I guess David's dead. He got his head bashed in. Mm-hmm. Eva is passed out in the shower. She's not dead. She was just washing blood off earlier.
We know that Tristan and Gazelle are not dead because Tristan asked Gazelle not to say anything to their father.
You mean Taylor?
Damn it. Yes.
There's like 25 names. You're forgiven. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like out of all the subplots in the movie, that one is given the most. It is addressed the most in the film, which I'm just like, all right.
Which one, Taylor or Gazelle?
Taylor and Gazelle's, like, everything about them. Yeah.
I wonder if it's just because it's another societal taboo that Noé can tap into. Like, okay, well, you probably expected the racism. You probably expected the homophobia. You probably expected the misogyny and the sexual assault. But did you expect incest?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe y'all did because y'all are familiar with Noé, and so you're like, yeah, whatever, like, everything's on the table.
I mean, he's a provocateur.
Yeah, I mean, like, I Stand Alone, again, like, the whole plot of that movie is it's a man known as the Butcher gets out of prison, and then he just goes through the city just on his misanthropic rant, and it's incredibly hard to listen to. Mm-hmm. And his target is to find his daughter who he wants to be in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when it did show up, I wasn't like, what? Where'd this come from?
Yeah.
Same way as, like, when Lou gets kicked in the stomach and miscarries, that also happens in I Stand Alone. The main character kicks his pregnant ex-wife, I believe, in the stomach, and then she miscarries, and then he goes on his rampage.
Yeah, and people have drawn a lot of comparisons between the two, and the very significant difference in how they were received, because people like I Stand Alone, but they have said, you know, like, oh, it's really difficult. Like, he's obviously coming in here and he's going to be an enfant terrible of the, you know, French new wave cinema. And then here they're like, oh my God, it's his most accessible film. And you're just like, but the same shit is happening in both.
Yeah, I guess just this one's more colorful and it has fun music.
No, this one has a flag in it, and the people are great dancers.
Yeah, I guess it's also, I mean, it is exciting to see something so diverse and so queer.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's hypersexualized, but it's not all the characters where I'm like, ew, gross. Some of them I'm like, oh, this is kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's not as one note as I would say some of his other movies are, and I think that's a big reason why people took to it.
Yeah, which is fascinating because I've seen people say, oh, well, nothing happens in this film. It's just a bunch of dancers get high and then shit. I'm like, okay, I guess we watch different movies.
Yeah, I was going to say they get high and shit.
That we know of.
I mean,
I'm just like, people, this is not the most fucked up So You Think You Can Dance episode you've ever seen. Like, there's more to this movie.
I don't think so.
It's not the most fucked up episode? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Yeah.
I think that's all it is. There's something else to it.
Oh my God. I would say I would rather people reference that as opposed to make jokes about like, whoa, it's Gaspar Noé's step-up movie. And I'm like, okay, everyone has made this
Jesus
joke.
Christ.
Move on.
Also, as someone who enjoys both So You Think You Can Dance as well as Step Up, the dancing maybe, but like there's other things going on that you're not going to see on those fine family programs. Pretty sure I've never seen Nigel Hawthorne get his head beaten on the floor during one of the audition rounds. So You Think You Can
Well, I was going to say, which character would Channing Tatum be in this movie? Would he be David?
David.
He's
yeah.
David, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, again, the biggest surprise to me in this movie is that David does not end up being like a huge piece of shit.
Well, if he becomes, it's also another thing that Noé is interested in. I mean, it's mostly in his latter movies is he's interested in these really shitty men who then reveal themselves to be really shitty, but also really pathetic. So in some ways it's way worse, but you at least get to watch them, you know, fall from grace even farther.
Well, I like that it's not I redeemed them and like you thought they were shitty, but they're not that bad. It's like, no, they are as shitty as you thought, but also they're just pathetic and sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they do have, I feel he has his type. They have similar looks. Like, oh God, I'm blanking on the main actor from Enter the Void. I want to say Nathaniel Brown, and then Carl Glusman in Love, and then now David in Climax. They all have a similar look of just sort of stripped down. They're essentially just, they're vessels for people to project onto.
Got it.
Generic hot with very little hair. Yeah.
Yes.
So the end of the movie reveals that Psyche is the one who did it all. She gives herself a little eyedropper of LSD. I love that she's still going. Like,
I know.
Clearly she doesn't know dosing. Hey, if you've never had LSD, this is enough to fuck people up. Meanwhile, she's like, I'll take another few drops in the eye. Thank you.
Oh, she's just standing there waving her hands vertically. Oh, and also I should point out that before we get these shots of people's fates, that's when we get the next title card, which is Life is a Collective Impossibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit partway through, we get the Death is an Extraordinary Experience, but it's upside down, which I always thought was really cute.
Cute?
I mean, I don't know about you, but I think it's
playful.
I was tickled pink. Well, that's the thing, is like, when people are like, oh, he has no sense of humor, I'm like,
oh, I disagree.
You can say you don't like his sense of humor, or it doesn't translate to you. He has a sense of humor. He's very playful.
Yes.
Especially, and this is, again, I think this is the apex of him being playful, which, again, is why I would say even got the release it did.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, again, I keep saying this, people were more taken with it than some of his other efforts.
Your Rotten Tomatoes review blurb for this movie should be, it left me tickled pink.
It left me tickled pink. I think I said something like, I did reference how I hadn't been so like red in the face and fucked up by a movie since Mother. Like that was my metric of like, okay, every once in a while there's a movie that just sort of annihilates me. I do think it's funny though. Obviously it's not still there. When I put my review on Rotten Tomatoes, I got Climax to 69%.
Yeah.
And then some fucker gave it some rottens, and now it's 68.
Okay, well, we will do our part to see if we can boost it back up.
Oh my god, yes.
We'll be getting it 2 more fresh ones.
Oh
so
god,
we'll
please avenge me.
It's a race of that 69, baby.
Yes, nothing else.
Well, I mean, final thoughts on Climax?
Climax.
Matt, you're the guest of honor. So why don't you offer us some final thoughts and rudiment, whatever. I don't know what I was trying to say. I was trying to say not rudimentary, but like rumination.
Oh, yeah, like
reminisce.
No, like
ruminations. Ruminating.
Sure.
That. Oh my god.
Okay.
Blooper.
No, keep that all in, please. It was no, I don't know. I mean, this is a movie that, again, just being like smacked in the face with a movie is something that I find genuinely therapeutic to come back to every once in a while. And it's not an original sentiment, but it definitely goes back to the idea of, I mean, people love something like horror because it basically exudes all possibilities of your worst anxieties, but it's contained. And so you get to hopefully come out the other end alive. And it's also fascinating. We were talking about, intent versus execution. This is a movie, particularly in the last couple of years, that I gravitate toward because of that. When you hear about its production and how a lot of it was just extemporaneous, and how a lot of it was accidental, I love that because it's, again, I know you two have talked about it. Once it leaves the artist's hand, it's strictly in the hands of the viewer. Right. This is one of the most of those movies in recent years. And it's also, like, as I was talking about, it's one of the few movies in recent years that I would actually call nihilistic. And again, that's not a bad thing, because I kind of have a resentment towards people who use that as a buzzword of being like, you're a bummer, or you're depressed or misanthropic. I feel like a lot of times people mistake nihilism with apathy, just in terms of like blatantly not caring about anything. That's clearly not the case, because you look at something like this and there's such artistry to it, and you do get something out of it. And it's a whole lot for me. And I'm happy to come on here, and I'm especially happy that this, of all fucking things, is what I started talking about.
I really like this movie, and I never want to see it again.
Fair.
That makes one of us.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a Matt. I can appreciate, Trace, that this is one of those things where you're going to say, I'm not going to be in the mood for this because this is just too much.
But like, even as a show, like, let me show someone Climax. It's like, because sometimes I'll want to show someone Martyrs because I'm like, it's really upsetting, but like, I want to see someone witness this. Right. I don't feel that way about this movie. I can't take it.
So that is so bizarre to me, because I find Martyrs is the much harder hurdle to get over. For me, it does seem weird to say it, but there is something very accessible about this in terms of, if this is an introduction to Noé, this is the one that is probably going to get you, because it's still reflective of his work, but it's not so much that you're going to look at it and be like, no, I absolutely can never watch a single thing that he has ever done again.
Right.
I love the kind of heady mix of audience fare with the dancing, where it's something everyone can enjoy, but also it's got the political messaging and the harder to suss out things. Like, you have to work to get stuff out of this movie, because if not, it feels like it's all surface. And I love that Noé is able to capture that while still being improvisational and working collaboratively with his actors and shooting this like for dimes in a rundown school in Paris. Like, I just think the film is it's a bit of a gem in that regard. Like, this isn't a movie that should work as well as it does, and I find that really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, give him that production too. I mean, I can't believe that this was improvised and they just made this in 15 days. It is very impressive.
Yeah, and like, nobody got a broken nose or went to the hospital, for what we know.
No, but it is cute though, because, and I'm not saying this ironically, if you go, so I follow a bunch of the dancers and the cast on Instagram, and a couple of them, you can basically pin Instagram stories, even if they're like years old, onto your profile. Some of them have ones that are marked Climax, and you can look at people, like, look at the cast. Like, there's some on like Sophia Battel's Instagram. It's like she's starting to rehearse and she's like hanging out, and like people are like playing foosball and shooting the shit. Or like a bunch of them going to Cannes for the first time, and they're really excited, and they're sharing a room, like they're sharing a house. And it's very sweet. And it's all of them together, just sort of vibing. I don't know. anything that has this many moving parts and is able to feel as cohesive as it is something really special to me.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, challenge to listeners. If we have any dancers in the house, I would love to see people recreate any of the dance movements from this film. Interpret it in your own way if you want, but yeah, tag us on the socials if you try it.
My God, I would love to be able to dance like some of the people in this film.
Oh my God, every time I see dancing, I'm just like, fuck, I wish I could get my body to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, before we tease what we are covering next week, Matt, first of all, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this. I am glad that you had so much to say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad too.
If not, it would have been Trace and I being like, dance pretty, the rest is sad.
Microcosm.
I hope that I didn't come off as too much of an armchair analyst.
No! Not at all.
It's
like,
what we're
literally
looking for.
not at all. But let everyone know, where can people find you on social media?
So on Twitter, I'm Cipolla Matt. On Instagram, I'm Cipolla.Matt because someone else took my name.
Naturally.
Yeah, I'm on Letterboxd. You could just look up Matt Cipolla. I don't know if I really have an app for that. Yeah, I guess those are the main places. I'm mostly on Twitter. But yeah, keep track with me. Reach out. Or don't. I don't know.
Do.
Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at Horror Queers. Join our Facebook Horror Queers group to hang out with other listeners. Go to our Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. We actually had someone in our Facebook group ask if there was like an easy way to like search for the films we've covered. Letterboxd is a really good way to do that because we do keep lists of all of our episodes. So,
Mm-hmm. Including the Patreon ones, because those numbers are climbing up there.
Exactly. And of course, go to our YouTube channel to look at our queer horror short coverage on Micro Queers and our Horror Queers Hangouts, where we talk to peers in the industry about random horror topics each month. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on your podcatcher of choice. And if you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. This is March. We are in March, everybody. Woo-hoo. Holy moly. So if you go to our Patreon now, you can get you will get episodes this month on No Exit, Fresh, X, and a fun discussion on our favorite horror films where the villain wins. And our audio commentary for the month will be on Blade 2 just in time for its 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
Joe, what can we tell them about next week's film?
All right. So I suggested that this was an anxiety arc, and we're going to move out of it. So we've hit the gas pedal. Everybody got nauseous a bunch the last couple of weeks. And next week, we're going to slow it down. We're going to go indie drama.
That's it.
That's it. 2020, but 2019 may also be on the table. So you got a 2-year range.
Yes. So everyone, of course, be on the lookout on our socials. We will be teasing our potential picks, but announcing the winner or the choice on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But until next week, we can cross out Climax.
Indeed. And cross out Horror Queers.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.